Is digital supply chain, would you consider that a pretty new field, or is it just an older field with a new name?
I think it is. I think there are certain aspects of digital supply chain that have been employed in broadcasting for quite some time now. But I certainly think that it's pretty recent that we're seeing it as the digital supply chain as an end-to-end process, because now we're finally delivering content, as media files that they've existed as media files from the very beginning, and they are, nothing goes back to tape in a traditional videotape sense. Reels Channel and Current TV were the first two television networks designed from the ground up and launched as completely file-based facilities. And so they are unique in that, with the minute we acquire content, whether it's a satellite feed or it's content from someone that we say buy a program from, it immediately that content is ingested and a digital file is created, and from that moment until it's delivered to the viewer at home, it is a file. Nothing goes back to videotape for playback to the satellite. Nothing goes back to tape and then is later turned into a file for video on demand distribution. It is all completely file-based, and there are a number of advantages that go with that. There are a business can certainly cut down on the amount of overhead that it takes to move that content around. There's no large space dedicated to a videotape vault. There's no large overhead for things like tape machine maintenance, and of course things can move around a digital supply chain with a lot more agility than they can videotape. We can ingest something in Los Angeles, and the moment that it's done, a low-res proxy of the high-res media is created, and that proxy then is available to over the company's computer network, and it can be played simultaneously by the 250 staff members company-wide in offices, in 3 different cities on both coasts. You can't do that with videotape. You'd have to make a duplication of each videotape and send it FedEx or whatever to each location, which costs a great deal of money and takes a whole lot of time. But someone can tape will arrive in LA, be ingested, and somebody can be watching it in New York 10 minutes later.
What are some of the typical bottlenecks in your digital supply chain?
Over time, there have been bottlenecks, and those bottlenecks are quickly going away due to improvements in design and technology. Some of the bottlenecks involved in the exchange between essentially there are different pools of storage that you need in a broadcast facility. There's usually a SAN, a storage area network, which is very high-speed fiber channel disk drives, and that's where the high-resolution content resides early on. That it needs to reside there so that an edit bay can use that content to create programming in a high-quality fashion. Its content is recorded to the SAN, but that's very expensive storage, and there's a very limited amount of it. So you need to have a secondary and sometimes a third pool of storage to, first of all, archive the file so that you have a copy of it, and to keep it for the near term, and then you have to have a storage pool to archive the file over the long term, so that the file can be protected for business continuity and disaster recovery scenarios. So essentially what happens is you've got a small pool of high-speed storage, a large pool of middle-speed storage called nearline usually, or slow disk storage. Then you've got an LTO tape archive that archives the data for those business continuity purposes, and so that the data is data that you don't need. You may not need for 2 years. You don't want it to sit on one of your taking up space in one of your storage pools. So the bottlenecks have been, particularly between the high-speed storage and the deep archive, and so sometimes it can take, it can take 20 or 30 minutes to pull a large file out of that archive with some systems. That's the way it was early on, and you just factored that in. It's still faster than a videotape-based supply chain, but it still takes time. Now over time, the connectivity has improved between these systems. It's gone from Ethernet to 4 and 8 gigabit fiber channel, so that these files now can move extremely quickly. So even large files that are in HD video can move from one pool to the other in just a few seconds. And so that's where those improvements have happened, and those are some areas where we've made some improvements in Reels channel by upgrading systems to eliminate those bottlenecks. I think what's important when you're managing, a digital supply chain is to constantly be looking at each step in the process, and can that, is there an improvement in that step? Is there value in breaking the step down further in order to create an efficiency or create more quality and reliability. And so as supply chain managers, that's kind of our first thing. The second thing is just to be constantly researching and networking with people that are doing some of the same things and finding out what's successful for them. The development of technology in our world moves so quickly that you really need to stay on top of it on a daily basis. And so I think constantly researching and reading and learning about what trends are out there is certainly a big part of what we need to do as effective supply chain managers. There's revenue that can be generated by if you've got content that subscribers that folks are willing to pay a monthly access fee so that they can see it on a mobile device, or premium content that they're able to see via download to their set-top box, that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of revenue possibilities there, and of course, then there's advertising that can be integrated into that content that they will see, and so you're able to sell those advertising services to your customers. I think that's going to happen more over time. I mean, like I said before, what we've seen more recently really is more of a, companies of all sizes just really trying to stake their claim in this area first, and then I think we'll see attempts at generating revenue through subscriptions and that sort of thing coming later. I mean, you can watch the content on many of these sites, for free, but I think over time we're going to see, we may see subsets of that content only available via subscription. We already do see some of that.
Logically.